After going through the roster and leaving a path of destruction, Brock Lesnar finally set his sights on the WWE Championship once again. His whole career in kayfabe and outside is about wanting to prove he's the best. In the early 2000s, he was the fastest rising star, beating Hulk Hogan, The Rock, The Undertaker, and Kurt Angle within 7 months. Add to that, he main evented SummerSlam, won the Royal Rumble, and of course main evented WrestleMania. A few years later, he's in UFC, and sure, his title shot was questionable to some, but he ended up being a beast, ending streaks, unifying titles until his own body gave out. Lesnar's diverticulitis problem may have forced him to retire in December 2011 from MMA competition, but it allowed him to enter the world of WWE once again. Unlike his previous run in the early 2000s, Lesnar seemed more dangerous and vicious. His MMA and UFC background was heavily mentioned and gave him the sense, well, not sense because we know who the hell Brock Lesnar is, but this aura of legitimacy that almost no wrestler on the roster had. Like if WWE was a shoot, if it was real, Brock Lesnar would probably be the world champion. Sure, he lost to John Cena and Triple H, but they quickly went to the correct route with the former champion and had him look almost untouchable. CM Punk, Big Show, and of course The Undertaker, and his streak fell victim to the beast. With all of this, Lesnar finally thought, why not the title? And at the time, it was very interesting because ever since he returned, there was very little mention of title shots or anything like that. SummerSlam comes around and a huge main event between John Cena and Brock Lesnar turned out to be the most shocking of the past decade. Cena, the 15-time champion, the almost unstoppable face of the company, was portrayed to look like nothing more than a mere jobber, and it's for me the final episode of Super Cena. He basically died in front of our eyes. You guys know how everyone hated Cena, how he's winning a lot, but here it's about the beast Brock Lesnar and the title reign away from the squared circle. Now before this video starts, I'd like to apologize for not uploading. I was traveling, I'm not with my normal setup. I was somewhat allowed to make the Money in the Bank video because that was very simple, straight up. With this is different, and I've had some issues in recent weeks. Some stuff I can't really do much about, some stuff it's related to my channel and some other equipment things. It's annoying, but it is what it is. Sometimes I have to alter the videos in order to upload them, and it's a problem, but it is what it is. Alright, with that said, let's get into it. On the August 18, 2014 episode of Raw, the Authority was set to unveil the new WWE World Heavyweight Championship. The logo was changing. They saw that the two titles were a hassle, which I disagree with. I mean, it made everyone who held them look like a final boss, so they altered the design. Brock Lesnar came out and already he's rubbing salt in the wound with his new t-shirt design. Brock took his time in celebrating with the new title belt and was more than excited to hear Paul Heyman give his thoughts. He confirmed that John Cena wasn't here because of Brock Lesnar. The man was loving what he was hearing and said that he's never seen somebody take an ass kicking like John Cena did the previous night. Heyman spoke about Cena's elevated status, and when compared to others, almost nobody comes close, and unlike others, Cena refused to give up, and it was then he understood why everyone liked him. This is when Paul Heyman began to appreciate John Cena, despite his kids liking him and whatnot, He already hated him, but here, he saw him in a different light. He means it when he says he never gives up, and so respect was earned, and if it came down to it, he would want to make him a Paul Heyman guy. Unfortunately though, Brock Lesnar does not share these opinions, and to him, he who dies with the most street cred simply dies. There's no street cred, none of that. He basically made Lesnar look untouchable and threatened anybody who tried coming near. For Heyman, it's for their benefit to avoid him basically. Then he described what happened last night in simple terms. Eat, sleep, suplex, repeat. Eat, sleep, suplex, you guys get it. And they're gone. That's it. That's the promo. Lesnar was now champion and Cena was not seen as a viable challenger. But despite this, the match was confirmed for Night of Champions. These legends showed doubts in this being a competitive match, and for HBK, it came down to Cena simply being not good enough. Everyone comes to that point, and it's probably time for him. Ric Flair showed great respect to Cena in his career, however, he didn't want to see this match. Hogan, though, chose him. This caused HBK and Flair to look at their perspective and tell Hogan that it's not going to happen. John Cena ain't going to win, and basically he's a jobber now. That's putting it simply. And man, did they make him look like a joke with these images. Hogan was the only one who believed him. Before you knew it, there he was, the beaten ex-champion. Those comments that HBK and Flair gave him seemed to have hurt him, and Cena knew that he was the talk of the show and admitted that he took a beating. He couldn't do one of those basic, oh, we'll try again next time things that you see in basketball, football, whatever. You can't do those, oh, we're nice, da, 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 da. You can't do that. Why? Because he took a beating. Night of Champions, he's gonna beat Brock Lesnar's ass, and he didn't really say much. At this point, it seemed like Cena was determined. He was gaining form, but there was doubts over whether or not he could actually do it. On the highlight reel, Triple H told Chris Jericho that he rewatched that match at SummerSlam, but what he got out of it was that Cena getting a rematch might not be best for business. Chris Jericho got mad like his title shot was being taken away. Randy Orton felt that he was the right person to beat Lesnar. Kane follows up, and then Seth Rollins. His reasoning is because he's the future and his resume speaks for itself, or maybe it should be Y2J Chris Jericho. However, John Cena put a stop to all of this and didn't waste time in entering the ring. This man was more than pissed at Triple H than the others, as his words were influencing everyone else. And about the title shot, if Triple H even thinks of taking it away, he'll get sued. Triple H was greatly offended by this and saw this as an example of doing something that's best for business. Best for business might not be John Cena as WWE champion, but John Cena's career ending at Night of Champions will not be good at all. Seth Rollins, though, asked to let him take the title shot because there's always plan B, and Randy Orton wanted to face the winner of that match. Chris Jericho made a joke out of Orton's title shots, but despite all this, Triple H wanted to see everyone in the ring prove themselves. He still doubted Cena and doubted Cena's claims, but allowed him to show otherwise. Meanwhile, Paul Heyman once again trashed John Cena and said that Lesnar emasculated him. His manhood was stripped, and found this similar to others. He refuses to listen to reason, and that's what happened. Man was working overtime to remind everyone of what's to come at Night of Champions. Once again, Heyman was there to give a warning, but before he could probably speak, John Cena interrupted. Man was talking trash, and he's finally confronted. Since Cena came out, Lesnar told him to give some inside information. What's that? Well, inside information on how to beat him. Cena felt that he didn't need advice to beat Lesnar and said that it came down to 3 words. Never give up. He wanted Heyman to give this to Brock to let him know what's up at Night of Champions, and once again, Heyman laughed it off and told him that this is his biggest problem, being John Cena, the guy that inspires kids. Brock Lesnar, on the other hand, doesn't need the fans. He hears the referee, Paul Heyman, and the suffering of his victims. Victims such as John Cena at SummerSlam. Heyman told Cena to give in. These fans will chant Cena sucks despite his success. He wanted him to shut the fans up, and hell, Heyman wanted to give a rap to inspire Cena to give in. Man took a shot at the Baltimore Ravens and was going all out, just for Cena to embrace the hate. He didn't need to sell his soul to the devil sold his soul to Heyman, and then and only then will he be the one who will beat the one in 21-1, or he'll be conquered. Great ass promo. Cena was very close. Heyman was praying to God for a moment there, but Cena didn't give in. Instead, he shut Paul Heyman up. He told him that it's easy for him, and he said that Heyman was evil, and if it came down to it, he would stab Brock Lesnar in the back. Unlike him, he lives by the motto, be John Cena, repeat. Be John Cena, repeat. Why? Because that's who he is. That's who he was. Others, such as Heyman, don't understand. He likes being the one who helps that kid do his homework before Raw, and on the other side, he didn't mind the father that chanted Cena sucks. His heroes, those that take inspiration from him. And that's why he eats, sleeps, beats John Cena. And he was very close to giving in a beat him, but told Heyman, hey, the headlines are going to read John Cena beats defenseless man, so he gave him 7 days to bring his beast, and if that doesn't happen, he's going to fight him. Heyman was starting to get fed up with this. He was giving out warnings, yet Cena was fearless. He asked Heyman, hey, where's the beast? All this talk, yet he's nowhere to be found, and he started going off on definitions, but Cena was simple. Either I fight him, or you. Brock Lesnar was going to be here, but his flight had been delayed. He claimed that Cena knew and just wanted to play up his good guy character, and so he grabbed him and threatened him once again. He told him, hey, you have until halftime. If you don't bring Brock Lesnar, you take a beating. Simple as that. Cena was haunting the man. He knew Heyman was smart and ensured he remained in the arena. And how was he going to do that? Well, by trapping Paul Heyman. Fast forward to halftime. At this point, Cena basically wants some GTA R1 L1 cheat code from Paul Heyman to bring Brock Lesnar. Otherwise, it spelled disaster for the Advocate. Of course, the mental games are here as Heyman claimed that this is the true John Cena, that he wanted to come out, and he has. But the aggression should be towards the fans, and the trigger won't be the Cena Nation. Heyman was pushing his buttons, saying that Cena won't beat him up once again, as that would make him a bully. He'd be like, why are you going to beat up a father? Brock Lesnar's the bully, not me. Basically, he can't unlock his true self, so he can't beat Brock Lesnar. Once again, Heyman asked him to bring out that aggression and talking about how this is going to get you the title. He's telling Cena to say the champ is here, but then he says he can't because Lesnar took it away. And then he said that he knew that he deserved a beating, but because he's too good of a man, that ain't happening. Cena was near the breaking point, but assaulting Heyman realizes the Advocate's vision of a Paul Heyman guy. You know how he's talking about earlier on, oh, you could be a Paul Heyman guy. All you got to do is give in. He couldn't, though. It was all about having Lesnar come out and to establish that he was ready for Night of Champions. Cena's leaving when Heyman said that if he was his mother, he would be proud if his son was born with a set of testicles. And he's unlocked. Brock Lesnar's music plays, and yes, he was here. The crowd goes crazy. Lesnar took his time, but felt that Cena wasn't worth it. Now it lasts for only a few seconds before you knew it, he's in the ring. Cena takes the trip to Germany, specifically Suplex City, and already he's out-wrestled John Cena. Cena, though, didn't want anyone to get the wrong impression and brought the fight. The challenger was far too intense and far too desperate to let go just a little here. So it's all come down to this. John Cena's done a damn good job of proving that maybe, just maybe, SummerSlam was a one-time thing. He refused to let it get to his head, but at the same time, he's never suffered a beating like that, and everyone around him have doubts. Here we go. Similar to the previous match, Lesnar's intensity and pressing easily got to John Cena, who was fully phased, and instead of focusing on doing something quick, this thing was on crack. everything was just all out. The crowd was going insane from out of nowhere. Cena hits the AA. Lesnar goes for the Kimura lock, and Cena reaches a rope. That guy's probably going to sell us a mortgage in the future. And Lesnar's fierce aggression allowed him to integrate well into the match. Cena was not in the same predicament as SummerSlam, but that's not saying much. That would slowly change, but now's not the time. Cena's offense was few and far between, but when he went for it, he made sure Lesnar felt it. As time went on, Lesnar was taking noticeable damage, and at this point, it was anybody's match. Both men were hell-bent on wrapping it up, especially Lesnar. John Cena showed heart and determination, and with the Kimura locked in, he forced Lesnar in a break and hit the third AA. Even then, he locked in the STF, and at this point, it was no SummerSlam. Cena was closer to victory than he previously was. He hit a fourth just when Seth Rollins caused the DQ. Man thought it was Monday. Rollins saw this as a huge opportunity to take advantage of a wounded beast. John Cena, though, was like, not tonight, and forced Rollins to run away. Lesnar capitalizes and realizes it's time to disappear. The match itself was very interesting. Lesnar just won the title, but they made you believe there was a chance. It sold just how determined Cena was to right SummerSlam's wrong, and also established Lesnar as an almost untouchable champion, as long as he doesn't take 4 AAs and an STFU, which even then he didn't even tap out of because of the DQ. The ending is dumb as is the usual, and it's probably why this match isn't talked about. SummerSlam in general was going to be hard to top, but they went in a different direction with this one, and if you ever feel like watching something from 2014 WWE, this is slightly recommended. Now, Lesnar disappearing with the title isn't good, but you have to remember, this was the first time it ever happened. Some believed it would make the title matches feel more special, and from that perspective it's true, and also unlike Roman now, there's not a huge story going on like the Authority and John Cena was at that time, something they could use to attract attention. There's not that storyline right now whenever Roman Reigns goes away. At this point, Paul Heyman was speaking on behalf of Lesnar occasionally, and John Cena was the #1 contender after beating Randy Orton inside Hell in a Cell. Almost an underrated match. On the December 15, 2014 episode of Raw, Chris Jericho was set to face Paul Heyman. He had some previous issues with him and was ready to give him a beating over it, and this stuff is from the ECW days when checks were bouncing quicker than James Harden did from Brooklyn. Now, Heyman wasn't going to pay no check. He didn't understand why Jericho would want to get into a fight with Brock Lesnar. See, he was lying, and there he is. This was his first appearance since Night of Champions, and since then, a lot's changed. Now, Jericho was a 6-time champion. Not only was he facing Brock Lesnar, but he was facing a man with a part-time boost, which meant he had no chance. Seeing that chance intensify, Brock's expecting him, but that's a different story, a story for later that night, because Lesnar decided to attack Cena and leave him laying for Seth Rollins. No beating for the Architect. Turns out, this was a partnership, as Cena was the #1 contender, and taking a beating ahead of the Rumble means he's damaged goods. But the partnership was only exclusive to Lesnar's benefits, as a few weeks later, Seth Rollins was added to the match. With Raw in New Orleans, Paul Heyman took the opportunity to sell Brock Lesnar once again. In the same city, he ended the streak, talking about how Lesnar's the beast, and in particular, the streak was such a strong topic. It was a way to understand just how good Brock Lesnar was. The partnership Rollins and Lesnar had was no more. Brock was pissed at Seth being included and told him that the future starts when he says so. Okay, it's time for the contract signing. Heyman went on this long-ass chain about what's bad for Cena is good for Lesnar, which in turn is best for business, and Heyman expressed dissatisfaction with this partnership. He said that they're in a triple threat match, which means there's a chance for a double cross. And damn does Seth Rollins talk differently here. His voice, his choice of words, everything. He asked Heyman, does Brock Lesnar feel he's unable to handle a triple threat match? Rollins felt that the title is his because if plan A doesn't work, there's always plan B. Lesnar spoke and showed no fear. He's talking about how he conquered the Undertaker, John Cena, and he's gonna conquer Rollins. John Cena came in and said that Rollins' inclusion is terrible for him because he's pissed off himself and Lesnar, and after that, he's gonna kick Lesnar's ass. But this is when the Architect told Cena whatever he's tried has not come to fruition. Rollins wanted an advantage, and this leads to a brawl. Lesnar gets an AA through the table, and Seth Rollins connects with a curb stomp to stand tall as potentially the future champion. Lesnar was clearly upset by this, and didn't waste time by calling out the Architect on the final Raw before the pay-per-view. Triple H, though, came out and tried to cool down the situation, and even mentioned that Lesnar would do it himself, and plus, he was the one who suplexed Seth Rollins in the first place. Lesnar, though, was a very, very, very simple man. He asked Triple H, are you here to fix this or fight? It was a very intense situation as Stephanie was desperate to cool down. Seth Rollins, though, wasn't doing them any favors. Paul Heyman treated him like a child and asked the Authority to put a leash on him, otherwise Brock Lesnar will fix this. Then John Cena came on and he started going off on them on the mic, and he was still pissed over the Authority firing Ryback, Rowan, and Ziggler, so they told him to put his title spot on the line if he wanted to save their jobs. Cena managed to pull it, and to top it all off, Brock Lesnar was here to give Seth Rollins a beating. Kane and Big Show tried doing something about it, but Lesnar was immune to a beatdown on this night. So that's the build. Lesnar was always perceived to be the untouchable champion. Cena wants title number 16 in Redemption. Seth Rollins was the wild card. heading into I think everyone knew it was going to be good, but nobody expected it to be the classic that it was. The match was non-stop intense and exciting. Lesnar in the first part was once again the same Brock Lesnar everyone knew. Suplex City was almost overpopulated, and sure, he was pushed away, but it got to the point where Cena and Rollins had to team up. 3 AAs that spear through the barricade, and to top it all off, Seth Rollins dove right onto Lesnar and through the table. This leads to a nice match between Cena and Rollins, and these two had such great chemistry. Each match was better than the last, and up to this point, this was their best. Rollins delivered this superb Phoenix splash before Lesnar's like, what about me? There's a wide range of emotions, like, is it going to be Rollins? How's Lesnar still up? F5, oh, he retained. One of the best triple threat matches you will ever see. This thing was ridiculous, although the next match really put that word to the test. Each man played their role well. Cena was a veteran trying to capture the title he once held. Rollins was a young upstart who shined bright and took high risks. And Lesnar, he was Brock Lesnar. In storyline, he suffered a broken rib, but it didn't matter to him. As long as he got the win, all's good. Meanwhile, Roman Reigns won the Royal Rumble, and as you know, half the audience, well, most of the audience was more than pissed. He's inexperienced, he's green, all that, and at the time it was crazy. Man was the most hated. That's another story, but for now, it's about Lesnar and Roman. These two were set to go face-to-face in an interview with Michael Cole. Paul Heyman, though, wanted to ask the questions, and he went on about how he's known Roman's family for a long time. Heyman praised the family for being natural athletes, and then he mentioned The Rock as another person he had so much respect for. But guess what? He knows Brock Lesnar. And the topic turned into SummerSlam 2002, but long story short, Heyman likened Roman's rise to Brock Lesnar's in 2002, but back to The Rock. He mentioned how he's never gotten a rematch because one match is enough with Brock Lesnar, yet The Rock failed to mention this to Roman Reigns. Similar to The Rock, he's gonna fall, and Heyman wanted to know how he's gonna handle that disappointment. Roman preferred to answer this to Brock, and he told him that he's winning at WrestleMania, but if he doesn't, he's gonna take a piece of him. Brock told him straight up that he doesn't respect him, and Roman's like, you will. He forgot to add the acknowledge me thing, but that's a whole other time period. This segment, from my memory, had more intensity than their go home show. It was a very unique situation, and I look at that show itself positively. It was very creative. After Roman Reigns retained his spot against Daniel Bryan at Fastlane, and this was an excellent match. Bryan and Roman could do no wrong together, but despite this, fans still hated Roman. He was seen as an industry plant. He had those blue eye contacts, the whole suffering succotash thing. To top it all off, Daniel Bryan basically endorsed Roman Reigns here. With that behind, it was time for the build-up to WrestleMania in Santa Monica. Paul Heyman ended up praising Roman Reigns greatly and talked about how if Roman faced Bruno, Hogan, Austin, Rock, you get it, he'd win. But with Brock Lesnar, it's a different story. He can't be the one who beats the 1 in 21-1. Heyman's money was on his client, talking about how he couldn't beat the Beast, and Roman took this as motivation. He almost couldn't understand how Heyman didn't see him the night after the Rumble, charging at Lesnar and telling him to show respect. Reigns told Heyman that it's not just about the win, but how he wins it, and told him to believe that. Now at the time, rumors circulated that Lesnar was gone. His contract was set to expire shortly after WrestleMania 31, and this also meant the new face of the WWE was the uncrowned champion. Now Lesnar had his options, either stay in the company or pursue a return to the octagon. Man was a draw in both areas. He had the leverage. At the same time, Heyman knew Lesnar leaving would hurt the company. He felt a Montreal screwjob situation could come to play, and he was talking about the effects of Lesnar getting screwed over. All this talk, and they were trying to cut his mic, and then he started going a bit further, saying that Lesnar, if he feels like it, he could unify the WWE and UFC title. If he wants to smack Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, he'd do it. And that reference in itself, along with blue eye contacts Roman, assures me that this is 2015. They're ready for any and all situations. Paul Heyman, meanwhile, was talking about Roman's family, and he portrayed them as savage beasts, which Reigns seemed to appreciate. Roman knew what he was getting into, and he knew that it was going to be a brutal battle that will leave him a battered man, but even after that, he'll be hoisting the title. On the final Raw before WrestleMania, Paul Heyman gave Roman Reigns and the fans a final preview ahead of the pay-per-view. For Heyman, somebody's got to be proven right and somebody's got to be proven wrong. There'll be a winner, a loser, a success, and of course a failure. Heyman assured everyone that it's Lesnar who's going to make a failure out of Roman Reigns, and he mentioned how taking the title away from Lesnar is a task of its own. He obliterated Roman, saying Lesnar will take his wife, take his kids, food off their plates, and rename them Lesnar. Roman said he can and will, but Brock Lesnar says he can't and he won't. Roman interrupts, and they stare at each other. Lesnar hoists the title, and Roman snatches it. The fans boo. Brock tries taking it back, and that's how the show ends. Damn, out of everything they did, they chose this. On the final Raw before WrestleMania 17, Austin and Rock had this violent brawl that fit the rivalry. And here, they're talking about how Lesnar's a beast, Roman's fully focused and expecting a fight, yet they're too busy playing a game of tug-of-war. The hell? You see Roman take away the title, you're expecting Brock to drop him or something. That didn't happen. The build was very dry. Fans, though, got a little excited after Brock renewed his contract the next night. He was officially with the WWE until 2018. This was something that opened up the possibility of Reigns losing, which in itself was bigger than at this point, it was bigger than life, you know. People hated Roman Reigns. They couldn't bear to see him hold the title because of his promos, the way he was pushed, all that. And so if Lesnar held the title for 2 more years, I don't think they would have had a problem if it meant Roman doesn't even touch it. The match itself had this grand spectacle to it. The sun had just set. Lesnar in the ring means it's big time, and the bell rang. Brock Lesnar absolutely dominated Roman, told him that this is Suplex City, and whatever Roman was dishing did nothing but anger the beast. It was so damn compelling. The way Roman sold, coupled with Lesnar's intensity and aggression, makes this a classic. It felt like a pure fight, and I'll never forget watching it for the first time. It was something special. Brock was giving him hell, Roman was taking it, and after a while, it's Lesnar who's wobbly. The crowd was all in, Roman's got the advantage, but then he ran into the F5. All of a sudden, Seth Rollins runs in with all the adrenaline to cash in Money in the Bank. He's going all out to achieve the almost impossible, but even then, Lesnar was still up. Roman hits the spear, and Rollins capitalizes with a curb stomp. 1, 2, 3, new champion. Damn! It's one of my favorite WrestleMania main events of all time. That's saying something. There's just something special. The atmosphere, the action, everything about it just clicked. Add to that, you had that amazing cash in at the end with Seth Rollins with the heist of the century, which was an iconic Michael Cole line. He went 2 for 2 WrestleMania 30, and here with the heist of the century thing, he really did a great job with those 2 things. I thought it was something special, and it's unfortunate that they haven't reached even half of the level of this match, you know, like they be doing this match every couple of months, yet they failed to replicate the match from 2015. But yeah, Rollins is champion now, and we made a video on that. That's a video I already made on the channel a few years back. Alright, so that's Brock Lesnar's title reign. The whole part-timer thing is hit and miss. This was when it was fresh. You know, like Lesnar leaving, they were actually doing more with the talent. John Cena, Seth Rollins had this big feud, the authority thing, all of that. When he was away, there was something going on. Later, though, it got worse. You see Lesnar taking the title. He's gone for so damn long. No one's gonna beat him. It was frustrating. But here, it's kind of different. He had some good matches. I'm not gonna say he had some good promos. That's for Paul Heyman. It's not good outright because the champion had to appear a bit more. In this era, I don't think anyone's accustomed to that champion leaving for such a long period of time, especially when the mid-card is not booked well. My favorite match from here is probably WrestleMania 31, which might be a hot take. It's my favorite easily because of everything. It just clicked, the atmosphere, vibe, everything like that. Royal Rumble is a close second easily. I mean, he literally had 3 matches, and that's going to be number 2 for me. One of the greatest triple threat matches of all time. But yeah, one of the reasons why I like this title reign a bit is because of the matches. Everything he did felt big time, and that's everything Brock Lesnar does in general. He wasn't overexposed or anything like that here. Some of it was nice. So yeah. Alright, what do you guys think of Brock Lesnar's title reign? Please comment down below, and that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the Kimura lock and the like button, and perhaps the F5 and the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.